Hello,
Hi.
how are you?
Good. How are you?
How are
Good,
you?
thank you. I'm so excited for the live.
So are we? Let's
um,
wait for everyone to join, I guess.
yes. I just wrote that we're going to talk about mental health. Hello.
So tell us more. How's London at the moment? How's the weather?
Good. I mean, it's a bit cold to be honest. I can't wait to go home. What
When
about
you
you? Hello. Some people are joining us. Before we start to ask questions, I was wondering if you could introduce the page and talk about, how you started the page, what's the main goal, etc., and then we can move on to the interview.
Yes, sure. So this happened like 2 months ago. So we all graduated online, and I graduated studying nutrition and food science, and
I graduated studying psychology.
so we were like, there's a lot of factors which overlap when you think about nutrition and mental health. So we were like, we could definitely do something. There is scope, especially during lockdown when so much happened and everyone suddenly realized that the whole, like your nutrition, like immunity,
Yes.
staying at home, lockdown, and the whole mental health part.
They just sort of it brought to light the importance of both physical health and mental health.
Yeah.
And we realized that there were a lot of influencers were who were spreading sort of misinformation, and having a background already, it was concerning to see because these are people's lives. So we thought we'd start this and just provide them information that's backed by research, just to help them.
And
Yes.
also how we always like we don't realize, but we just when during a lockdown we realized, oh my god, our physical health is so important, like mental health is so important, and only during the lockdown people started using social media to find ways
Yeah.
of like what so how can I improve my mental health, or study about mental health or learn about it, just spreading awareness. So our main goal was not about us. We didn't want it, was nothing to do with us. All we want to do is give people information, let them know that there is scope. I mean, not scope. There is a lot you can learn about. There's a lot you don't know, and it's very easy for social media to spread misinformation. Like we already know this, but
Yes.
it would be easier if you link these two, it will be easier to all have one page as well. So
Yes. And I guess Instagram is a very easy platform to use for both of you, to share information in a very quick way. And people can share it, send it to each others. So I think it's a really good way to spread a good message instead of, brainwashing people about misinformation, as you said.
yeah,
Thank you for the introduction. Um, for people who don't know me that are watching, my name is Lina. I am the director at Roots Journal with Elida, who is watching now. Our main goal at Roots Journal is to educate people on heritage, culture, identity. And I think that's why we got really interested by your page, because you're both from Sri Lanka, and I guess it's still a taboo in Sri Lanka to talk about mental health.
yeah.
So I thought it would be a really interesting live. So during the live, I'm going to ask you several questions that we have discussed before, but if you don't want to answer any question, or if you think that it's just not appropriate, you don't have to answer. So the first thing I wanted to ask you is, because obviously you talked about the main aim of your page, but did you want to create a sort of culture around your page as well?
I think from the mental health side of things, the culture I wanted to sort of create was a culture of acceptance more than anything. Just because, like you said, it's still very taboo, and a lot of people sort of respond to conversation surrounding mental health with like embarrassment or dismissal. Like it's like they either treat it as like something to be ashamed of, or like you're making an excuse. And I think that stems from purely just not being educated on the matter, not knowing that it's normal, and people who struggle with it can lead like healthy, successful lives, and they can be like good friends, good partners.
Of
So
course.
I mean, it is improving. Like, as we get more involved in this space, we can see that people are making an effort towards education and acceptance, but there's so much to go, and I just want to be maybe like part of that.
Yes.
And
Yeah, sorry.
like in how people, I think it's just a very Asian culture where people they don't realize that they just talk about someone's body, like the whole body image issue, like, oh, you're thin, fat, your skin,
Yes.
your light, and then that culture needs to change. Like people's perspective needs to change. There can be millions of reasons why someone looks a certain way or is a certain way, and I don't think it's like, it's a very personal issue, like a typical, like the whole desi culture, auntie culture.
Yes.
Try this aloe vera for your
yeah, just criticize basically.
so just trying to change that perspective of how to like reach out to a person or talk to someone or just listen. Or if someone is, even how the whole thing where they're like, oh, you're not eating, there could be so many other reasons someone's not eating.
Yes.
So you don't have to be so pushy. There can be, that culture needs to change, and people need to realize there's more to than what something is. You just know someone from the outside, but you don't know what's actually happening unless you're a friend or a very
yes. No, of course, yes. I think they're just assuming from what they see. As you said, they don't really know what's happening, and they just associate certain things to other things. So, for example, they associate, and like skinny to healthy, and then they associate chubby to unhealthy, things like this that are really not normal because everyone is different. And I guess it will change, and thanks to people like you that talk about it and that don't take it as a taboo. So I'm sure it will change, hopefully. And I wanted to ask you, do you think this is more prevalent, around like girls? Do you feel that girls are more criticized, or do you think boys are also as much criticized as girls in general?
You want to go first?
Yeah. So for mental health, I think because of how stereotypes work and how girls are traditionally thought of being more emotional, or even when it comes to like, even for food, like girls are thought considered to care more about their body image or something like that. So I think maybe it might be reported more in girls just because it's more accepted and that conversation is less taboo. That being said, I don't think that it occurs more in girls than men, because the thing is, with men, you realize that like things like suicide rates are actually pretty high because they're not given a place to talk about it. It's all this, if a man cries, they're weak, or that,
it's like the social construct. Yes.
Yeah, I think it's probably equally as prevalent. It's just not given as much of a spotlight.
Okay.
Yeah, and also in terms of like nutrition, I would say everyone, okay, especially social media is where girls, mostly girls, are now I would actually both genders. You see all these people with good bodies and like obviously taken different angles, how they're so skinny, how they're so fit, how they're good, like they're glowing, the hair looks good. And everyone starts to think, that's how everyone should look like, how every girl should look like, how every girl should be skinny, big ass something, and then every guy should be fit, abs, muscular, I don't know, I mean, whatever. So it's very hard. It's actually really funny where social media can be very, very toxic, where you see all these influencers and models and designers and everyone wanting you to look like them, be like them, and then there's the other end, which is very helpful. You get so much information, and we can just learn so much from. And like some influencers are extremely helpful, where some people are like just toxic. So it's all about that balance, so knowing what's good for you, what's bad for you, and knowing who to follow, who to unfollow. But it all depends on you, I guess.
Yes. I think it's hard to know who you should unfollow or not, especially that we're quite, like, naturally we're quite lazy in terms of how can I say it? Like, we prefer images in general, and I feel like people prefer looking at pictures rather than listening to people, etc. So I think it's our fault, but at the same time it's also natural to go towards images.
That thing about images, because that's something you know, because how we said we don't want to put our faces to it. A lot of our content is very text based,
That's
and
better.
we
Yeah.
worry that, you know, even though we know the content is helpful and it's backed up by research, we worry that, you know, people might not engage with it just because it's not the easiest accessible thing out there.
Yes,
Yeah, it's
that's
hard.
true. And I wanted to ask, like, apart from social media, do you think that, you know, traditional, you know, movies or, you know, celebrities take, you know, a sort of role in all this mental health issue? Because obviously in traditional movies, for example, in Morocco, you know, people were very thin, sometimes even underweight, and they had to look a certain way, if that makes sense. Like, you know, they have to have, you know, blonde hair, and just it's very silly now, because actually it's not the image of Moroccan girls that people want, but it was a very cliche image to have, you know, blonde, like very long hair and being very thin, etc. And people a long time ago, not now obviously, but they were trying to follow this type of people, you know, even though we didn't have social media at that time. But for example, my grandparents told me that everyone wanted to look like the people they were watching, you know. So I was wondering if you think, I mean, if you think that movies are considered as well in the mental health issue.
Um, yeah, I mean, I think the thing is, when you have a platform, someone is bound to look up to
Yeah.
you, you know, just because they think you've made it.
Yeah.
And you're not sharing the right values on your platform. A lot of people, especially young people, are very pressed. You know, there are a lot of celebrities who do a great job speaking about body image and mental health, and that's what they should be doing because of their audience. A
Yeah.
lot of people unfortunately don't, and then yeah.
Okay. Um, I wanted to ask you another question. In general, how do people talk about, you know, body image, skin color, um, you know, things like this, or, you know, in general, weight, things like this? Do you think there is a sort of cliche on how people abort this type of subjects, or do you think it depends on the age or on the generation? Because obviously we are a different generation from our parents. So how do you think people talk about it in general in Sri Lanka?
So in Sri Lanka, there's this whole idea where people think, like you said, being skinny is healthy. Being you have to look thin, and you have to, and they have this whole idea where, so again, I don't know if it's for everyone, but you know, if you're dieting, you're trying to lose, you're trying to impress someone, or like not eating is dieting. Just that whole concept, and and when you bring up the whole topic into your parents or your grandparents, saying, oh, reduce the amount of salt, reduce, we be careful of how much we eat, like balanced diet, everything. And then they tell you how, oh, you know, in our days, we never had this problem. It's only you up with this. You know, the typical, what we always hear. But but the only thing I don't understand is that we are a generation who live a very, very sedentary lifestyle compared to what they were. There's very little manual hard work. There's very little. There is movement. The only movement we like, we love fitness. Like that, this generation is very much into workout. But the rest of the day, we are in front of our laptops, in front of our phones, social media, Netflix. All of this is happening. Watching documentaries. It's not a bad thing, but then that means that you are moving less, and obviously there are other factors.
Yes, no, of course.
And then we live in an era of supermarkets. Like so much food is available, like the tip of your hand. It's as you go, like when we used to go to Tesco,
Yes, exactly.
hours and hours, like
Yes.
filling up our carts because there's so much to choose from.
Yeah,
And
that's true.
and just imagine, like back in the day, like import export was not very common, but now something like Tim Tams, I can get it anytime. I don't need Australia to get things like that. It's so readily available. It's crazy, it's amazing, but then at the same time, you have to be careful. It's all about the balance. Enjoy everything, but anything in excess is bad, which I think everyone knows, but it's just there. And then that's what we want to change in the like the older generation, that entire perspective, that there's a huge like change. Everything moves so fast. We live, everything is changing. Like every month or every year new flavors comes out in crisps. The food industry is booming. So things like this is very important to address and understand as to why people are talking so much about nutrition and health now, because it's very important.
It is. And I think there were two booms at the same time. So you said the supermarket boom on one side, but at the same time, since I think 2008, 2009, people started talking so much about body image and mental health. And some girls and boys both are on Instagram just saying like they don't want to shave, they want to show like how they are without doing like all the things that people expect them to do. And I think I don't want to assume anything, but I think this type of things are probably going to help so many people to feel better. And I'm not saying this is the only way to feel better, but I think by seeing other people being in their natural state, I put this like this, it just helps you to understand that at the end of the day we're all humans. Like we all have acne, we all have hair, we all have we all gain weight, we all lose weight. And this is so weird because on one side you have the supermarket booming and you have more availability and you are working on your phone, etc., on your laptop, as you said. But at the same time, people are more and more open talking about body image and mental health, and they're both happening at the same time, but they're actually opposite, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that does.
They don't go well together, but they're happening at the same time. So I think because one is happening, the other is happening. So because supermarket, etc., is happening, we are talking about what it makes us do, what it makes us choose, etc. But I think another thing you said that is really interesting as well is that in our parents' generation or even grandparents, it was normal to be like very thin and almost underweight sometimes. Like my parents, when they show me pictures of them when they were our age, I tell them like it's so different from us. I don't understand. We eat we eat almost the same. I don't get it. And they told me like they were walking all the time. 24/7. They told me we were walking all the time. You know how, like, for example, and as you said, Humaira, we even to go to uni, we use transport, for example. But they didn't. They were just walking everywhere. So they told me, yes, okay, we do eat probably approximately the same things, because for example Morocco didn't we still have traditional food. I guess it's the same in Sri Lanka, like in some areas people still have traditional food, but people were walking so much and just exactly what you said, doing like manual work and helping parents and things like this that we don't do anymore.
And like everyone, like it's just how things have become. Everything quick. Like we need Amazon Prime, get it the next day, get your food delivery the same day delivery, or jewelry. Everything we just want in the tip of our hands. So everything has constricted our movement.
Yes, and we are a very impatient generation, I think, in the sense that like because we have everything, like we have everything when we want. Like for example, that like we have everything, we deliver, and then it arrives like what, in 1 hour. I think we became a bit impatient, like when people don't lose weight, they're like, oh my god, like I need to lose weight right now, or I need to feel better right now. No, it's a whole process to feel better. You can't suddenly
start starving now, stop eating.
Exactly, like you can't suddenly stop. Like that doesn't make sense. Even about like mental health, I just feel that, for example, if you suffer from anxiety, you can't suddenly feel better or suddenly know how to cope with it, because you can't just learn by yourself. I guess sometimes people do, but I guess most of the time you need a therapist, for example, and you can't suddenly know which therapist is good for you. So I think we became very impatient, and sometimes it's really bad because it becomes a cycle, and I guess you guys know this better than me. Like it's just a cycle afterwards.
Like downsides of living in this whole digital era, while there's good about the education and stuff, it's just we're so used to everything being so fast and so readily available that it becomes like something difficult to deal with, something that you can't fix like that, like your body image or your mental health. You just feel like scared and you don't know what to turn to, and that's why so many people are like selling all these like quick fixes. And people are like attracted to that because they're like, that'll give me what I want fast, but they don't think about like the negative impact it's going to have on them long term, right?
Exactly. Just like diets, when we talk about all these diets available to us, from intermittent fasting to keto, paleo,
And
and
the
it's
juices. Yes.
yeah, exactly, the detox. It's just like never ending, like
Choice.
product
Yes.
coming in different ways. What people don't understand is that weight loss, yes, is the hard part. The hardest part is what you're at the end of it, the maintenance and your mental health and how you feel physically and mentally. You rather take a year or 2 years to get there and be happy with how you look and the way you are and understand your body, rather than have it in 2 months and then 2 months later you're back to square one.
You like, see, this is the thing. For me, I started my weight loss journey really recently, like a year ago. And I think the reason I was like scared of it was because I thought it would be this whole, like burden where I wouldn't be able to life because I'd just be like stressed all the time. And it was like realizing that you have to balance it. Like you can't hate it. Like if you're not enjoying it, you're not going to be successful in it. So.
Of course. And I think people around you, like I'm talking in general, like when there are people around you that sort of joke about it, like, oh, you gain weight, or oh, you lose weight. I just feel, even if it's one sentence or one word, it has such an impact on how you feel. And like, I know that sometimes they try to be funny, but I don't find it funny at all. And even my parents, like, thank God they don't do it. But we talked about it, and I told them, like, why do people like try to joke about weight? It's not funny. And they told me, like, this is how it is, because at home everyone has its right, to say anything about anyone. Like, no one ever told them, no, you can't do that. So for them, it's so normal.
It's like a not really an argument, but it's like a conversation I have with my parents all the time, because I mean, over here it's so normal. Like someone sees you and the first thing they say is, "Oh, you've lost weight," or "Oh, you've gained weight," or "Your skin's got bad," or anything, and they don't realize that like they're making people insecure. And if they can't it in like the next minute, don't mention it, because what are they going to do with that, right? Apart from feel bad.
Exactly. They don't realize that it has a big impact, and they think that because they are our parents, for example, or our siblings, or I don't know, someone from the family, or even close friends, they just think that it's fine if they tell us, but actually it's not fine, except if it's in a way, or like, I realize that, for example, I don't know, like for me, like for example, I would only tell if someone looks tired. I'll be like, are you okay? But I'll never be like, oh, like, what the fuck, like, what happened to you, like, why did you lose so much weight? Like, that's so mean. But I know so many people who do it and they don't care. They think it's funny. I'm like, it's not funny, bro. Like, you don't know what happened.
But you know how you say this, right? I really don't think it's. I haven't experienced this when I was at uni, where someone would come and tell me I think they would be. For example, if I go tell someone you've lost weight, they'll be shocked that someone's even looking at them in that way. Like, oh,
yes, that's true.
I think it's a very Southeast. I think, I don't know. It's a very deep rooted culture here, where people will they don't even think twice. They will be and they think they're telling for the betterment of like to help you.
Yes.
But are you really helping that person? And how do you know that person hasn't already tried different things and nothing is working?
They feel like very entitled to comment on other people's bodies, and they don't realize that they're being really like intrusive. And like Humaira said, like, you don't know the story behind it. Like, the person may have a medical condition, or they may have tried a million things and something's not working. You can't just like judge a book by its cover.
And what's worse is when they suggest something, or try this, try that. Please, like,
like, I don't want your advice.
I don't know. I just don't want. And I think it's worse when you are a growing child. Like, when I was a kid, I'm not gonna lie, I was overweight. I was maybe even obese, and it was frustrating to see people look at me in a way like I'm a disease. Like, it's actually like mentally traumatic to even like go back into those days and think about it. I love food. That I enjoy food.
Yes.
Even if you ask me about food, go on and on and on, because it's part of our life. Right? You need food, and I'm not gonna lie. Is it eat to live or live to eat?
Live to eat.
I eat, right? So
what, sorry?
I live to eat. I think
live to eat, yes.
live to eat as well. It's okay. We're the same. But yeah, just things like that. I mean, it's okay, you know, when you're a child, you can't tell them, oh, don't eat, look after your weight, look after your body, or look at you, clothes aren't fitting you. Okay, then that's it. If obviously if a child has health concerns, I mean, I feel that there are different ways of approaching it, and there are different ways of looking at it and bringing it, instead of making them like keep putting them down and making them feel insecure with themselves. Like these kids, and this is what happens when they grow up. That's how anxiety happens. That's how people fall into maybe possibly a leading cause of depression. And it all ties in with the mental health, and I will address something later, but when towards the end. But it's just like not nice. I mean, let at least children be.
And they guise a lot of it as they say like, oh, it's because I'm concerned, or it's because I'm this, because I'm that. But that doesn't make it any better if you say it in a hurtful way. You know, if you're worried, you know, as a parent or something, if you're worried about your child's health, you know, that's one thing. But if you're worried just about how they look, and if you tell them like, you know, you don't look good, you look fat, like, that you can't pretend that that's concern. That's just being mean, and that's just breaking them down. And it takes a lot of time to, like, you know, be able to build that back, like, confidence back up, right? When your parent or someone close to you at a young age, like.
Yes, and because they're young most of the time, because now we're focusing on children or teenagers, I think it could in the long term, you know, create, you know, things like body dysmorphia, or I don't know, bulimia, and just many issues that when they grow up, they just thinking, how did that come from? And then most of the time it came, you know, from the parents, probably from the school, because you know how like school weight children, I'm totally against that, but I know it's still a thing. I hate that. And you know, just about environmental factors, sometimes it's not about them, and people always put it on them.
What did you say about school weight?
So for example, like in England and in the US, I think, even in Canada probably, they weigh children to take the BMI, but it's not normal to do this, you know, especially that they do it with other children. So what they do, instead of taking the child one by one, they like put them in a queue and they do it in front of other children, and they, you know, give the weight out loud. And at this age, you think, oh, it's normal. It's just the pharmacist coming and taking our weight, and then you grow up and you're like, that's not normal at all. That's really not normal. But on this subject, I wanted to ask you another question, because we are talking about mental health now, and we talked about diet as well and food. What is the South Asian approach to diet culture?
So right now, okay, like I said earlier, I'm gonna like reiterate this fact again. So basically, a normal Sri Lankan or Pakistani or Indian diet is a lot of carbs, a lot of oil, a lot of in Sri Lanka especially, a lot of vegetables. Like everything is coconut milk. Everything is a lot of like coconut based stuff, and a lot of a lot of fruits as well. Loads of fruits available. But the only issue is that, again, social media has not focused on the fact that all these fruit and vegetables are available to you seasonally. So have them seasonally. Like you wouldn't like other stuff which is, I wouldn't say don't have it, but while it's in season, enjoy it in its full version, rather than enjoying it in a different season where it's grown somewhere else, bought here, loses its value. Yes, of course, enjoy it, go for it. But when you have something grown here, fresh, I wouldn't use the word healthy, but fresh, natural, available to you from the farms here, why wouldn't you have it, right? Why are you still thinking of having that smoothie bowl which are from foods which are actually imported from somewhere else? I mean, have your smoothie bowl. I'm not saying not to have a smoothie bowl, but have it available here. And the same thing with carbs. Like I said earlier, like there's something called a butt packet in Sri Lanka, which is a lunch packet. There's rice, all the vegetables, everything, curry, again curry, and that's it. I don't think there's anything else. And obviously a protein. It's going to be fish, pork, or chicken, or beef. And then that is a perfect plate. The only issue is the sizes. Like the rice portions are huge, and there are so many other carbs available in Sri Lanka, like hoppers, milk rice. It's just the portions are huge. Another issue is how much of coconut milk they use. It's loads. Everything has coconut milk and everything is in sizes.
Yes.
If you look at the Sri Lankan list of the available like fruits and vegetables and the foods you eat available, it actually could be the number one spot, just like Bali, to be vegan. You can easily be vegan and vegetarian in Sri Lanka.
Yes.
But it's just the portion sizes, how they make the food, how much oil. Same in Pakistan and India. Everything is based on so much oil, ghee,
Yes.
everything is fine, but it should be in the right
Yeah.
proportions. That's the only issue we have.
Okay, so it's about the proportion and how they cook it, right? So these two are the main issues, but the actual food by
It's fun.
itself.
Yeah.
Okay.
Knowing again, like buying seasonal fruits, buying it locally, it's so readily available to you, and we have fresh markets. Like in the UK, it would be really hard to find a fresh.
That's true.
In Sri Lanka, we have loads. I think we just used to need to make use of it.
But do you think this has changed? Do you think that, for example, in your maybe grandparents or parent generation, do you think that they weren't frying the food as much and then it changed, or do you think this was always a thing to transform healthy food like this? You know.
It comes back to the point where, see, like the food culture in Sri Lanka hasn't changed. There's still the whole thing going on about the same rice 3 times a day. But the issue is our lifestyle.
Yeah.
Again, sedentary, very like always like on, not in a bad way. We're working on laptops. We are in our chairs. Again, the whole pandemic has locked us in our house, our rooms. So there's a lot of like very little movement. So if you continue the same lifestyle and the same the supermarket, you have so much food available. Back in the day, you didn't have Uber, you didn't have supermarkets, you didn't have different chips flavors coming out or different yogurt flavors coming out. It was very like a lot of thing was made home and was fresh and was not like you're buying anything ready made.
It was limited.
Yeah. So, and there's been like I said, there's been a boom in the supermarket industry. So there's like a difference. Like that culture needs to change. It to adapt. Yeah, now and how we are living our lifestyles now.
I think the more sort of educated we become, the more people are trying to make a change. Like so, like Humaira and I, for example, we would use less oil or less milk or fry things less. But that comes from the fact that we have access to all this information telling us why we should do it like that. But the thing is, not a lot of people here have access to that information. So you still see, what you were saying about proportions, you still see people, they have like for lunch a plate with like a mountain of rice and just like 3 or 4 little curries on the side. And they don't understand why that's because it's filling, right? And that's, a lot of people, especially poorer people, they eat to be full, not for the health value. So they don't understand what they might be doing to their bodies by eating in that way. And like if they don't have that,
of course, they don't have the knowledge
why it's wrong, they're not going to make a difference to it.
Of course. And in terms of sort of how to move forward, what do you think is going to happen in terms of diet culture and mental health? Do you think there are any solutions? How do you think it's gonna, evolve in the future?
So far, and I talk about
solutions. I mean, I think it's going to be a very, very long-term thing. This sort of change doesn't happen overnight. It's a whole mindset change that has to happen. And I think, honestly, it just starts with education. Like, if a person does not know why their lifestyle is not good for them, then they see no reason to make a difference. If they're still getting by, then, they're not going to understand. So I think, hopefully for us, we can grow as a platform, expand, and maybe start sharing our knowledge to a wider audience. But honestly, the main thing, just especially and where we live in Colombo, a lot of because this is a capital.
Yes.
A lot of people, it's like everyone sort of getting with it. But the more rural you go, the more the lifestyle hasn't changed. So people need to target those areas where the information is not available and teach them. Then hopefully eventually over time we'll be able to see a change across the country.
Yeah, and in terms of nutrition, I mean, I would like to just like state this fact like out loud now, that we always think that social media is the one which is actually dominating our lives, and it
Yes.
has actually sit down and think about it, guys. Even the food industry is. I mean, the food industry controls us in terms of choice we make, from marketing to advertisements to the business to the packaging, everything the food industry runs. And it's a huge booming industry. And only when I went to university and saw the whole experiments and the research behind all the foods, you realize it's huge. The money being invested in the food industry and in terms of research is massive. So people need, and then like Zara said, education. We start bottom, right? We need to start from the telling the kids from like an early age. Like this easily could be a part, like a module or subject for school. And you know how in the UK, actually, I know that I'm pretty sure both of y'all realize this, how every single child knows that about 5 a day. They all know about it.
Yes. Yes.
Sri Lanka, labels didn't exist till beginning of this year. It wasn't even a law. Every food packaging should have a label, but kids there already know about it because they're educated bottom up. And I would actually say that the lifestyle in the UK is way more healthier,
Definitely.
like in the Western world. Okay, not America, sorry,
Not
but like
Yes.
actually pretty good. Even Morocco, Mediterranean food, France, everywhere
That's
they're educated and they know what they're eating. The only difference here is that we are still a third world country, and this kind of topic aren't really talked about and touched upon. So yes, America. And then so yeah, things like that really need to be looked into. And then right now, like, hopefully when we grow and we become a bigger platform, we want to be able to install all of these kinds of subjects and education within like the Sri Lankan community, talk about this more, have maybe like group discussions. For it doesn't have to be online, can be like teaching people how to read labels. Like that would be so helpful, right? Just compare, being able to understand what you're consuming from the doesn't have to be necessarily be calorie intake. For example, you have peanut allergy, like nut allergy. Would definitely check a label to see if they have contained. So people in Sri Lanka, if there is no labeling on the package, they wouldn't know what they're actually consuming.
That's true. It would help not just in terms of calories, as you said, but other important things. And for example, for someone who, I don't know, is suffering from, diabetes, they shouldn't eat certain type of food if they don't know how to, control it by themselves and things like that. So I think it would definitely help to educate on the lower scale in terms of like age. So from very young age. And as you said as well, with social media, taking it in the good way, not just, the negative side, because obviously there is the positive side of social media. And as we said earlier, we are literally working on our laptops. We are doing everything on our laptops. We don't even have, physical resources anymore, almost.
Yeah.
So I think there are some, and then there is hope, of course. But it's going to take time, that's it.
Sorry, and then when you start bottom up, like how we were saying how we were telling kids, like if you tell a child, oh, you're being unhealthy, you're fat, you're thin, things it will eventually like just reduce, because the child knows what they're doing. They will know what to buy, what's good for them, and what they're eating, and maybe in the future you wouldn't have these issues. And then we could even teach children how to approach people who have, I probably got approached, like, not in a bad way, not even directly, but about, if you teach people at an early age how to talk to people or not to look at these things, it doesn't matter. Some people have so many conditions, and there's so much research going on health conditions. So it could be, like I said, because the food industry is evolving, we're eating foods which we don't even know about, because they say less sugar, but there is something else being replaced for sugar. And if you consume some of it, that's how maybe we have more diseases happening and more problems happening. For example, the COVID-19 literally started off from a market. It was from food.
Yes, exactly. And all the other, big pandemic as well, you know, what happened with the cow, what happened, like it's always because of food. So we need to respect more our earth, I think, and how we consume as well. I feel like COVID-19 has been a lesson. But on what you said about children, I wanted to say, I think instead of teaching them, you know, saying bad things, I think we should also teach them, you know, to tell people, like, oh, you look good today, like this, things like this. You know?
I think with things starting from a young, you know, like you said, with nutrition for health, you can teach your children how to be an active listener, or like how to respond to someone who's having a problem, or even things for their own mental health, like when to say, I can't handle this right now, or this is too much for me. You know, both for themselves and for others. You can, if you start from a young age, then that just becomes a way of life for them, and that becomes normal for them. And it's not that you can't later on, but it's harder to learn those kind of things later on. And
yes,
you know, hopefully one day we'll have a generation who's grown up with those values and will continue to pass those values down. That's the ideal.
yes, hopefully. And I feel like also, apart from, you know, saying like I can't do this right now, some people don't know how to say no. And sometimes it has a big impact on them, you know, because they think, oh, I've done something so wrong just because they said no. And I think, as you both said, it's part of education too. Not that it was a bad education, but more like we never taught this person to think about themselves and to say no in certain situation. And, you know, to kind of, you know, close the door on people that are, for example, like criticizing them about their weight.
And the thing that can be so dangerous, not knowing when to like recognize your limits, can be so dangerous, because you know other people think, oh, this person's so nice or so helpful, but you probably end up being miserable because you're not prioritizing yourself, and you're taking more than you can handle, and then you're burnt out and tired and just not having a good time, when all it takes is learning how to have boundaries. And boundaries are healthy, and people, you know, worry so much that if I say no to this person, then they don't like me anymore. But it's also about realizing, like, important people in your life will respect your boundaries.
Of course.
Yeah. I think
that's true. I think important people will realize that you have boundaries, that you can't be 24/7 with them, or, you know, here for them and things like this, just because it's impossible. But I think it's going to be hard to explain people this, but it will change eventually. But I think it will be really hard to accept for some people, such as, you know, like family members or, you know, close friends. I don't think most of them would understand. But it will change. But I think it will be hard for them to accept.
Slowly but surely, hopefully.
Yes, exactly.
Start the change. And maybe one day our kids will be better people.
Yes, who knows? But I think that the generation, so my sister's generation, she's 90 now. I think like they're already more aware than us. Like she knows so many things about gender, about race and things like this. And we talk so much about it, but I'm so impressed because they're so young, but they know so much. And when I asked her, she told me, you know, like even though we have almost the same age, we are still different generation, because us, like the people that were born like after 2000, we have like access to social media, but we choose the right people. Whereas you guys, like you had Instagram so early that you follow like, you know, models, you know, not just models actually, but just people in general, you know, like they don't really give a good image, because like, in my opinion, I think that sometimes they try to sell you a product too. And as you said, Humaira, like they try to, you know, like tell you, oh, this is a good diet or this is a wrong diet and things like this.
No, but it's true, right? Because social media plays such an important role in our lives. We following one diet and we're like, oh my god, I want to be like her, it will work for me. But no, there's no one diet which fits for all. It's all up to you. Listen to your body and see what's good for you. Try. There's so many times you need to look into the fact that every person has different, so many factors come into play, like sleep, your genes, your work lifestyle, your travel lifestyle. And not every, for example, if you do intermittent fasting, are you going to be fasting, skipping breakfast, fasting for so long every single day of your life? think like that's the questions you to ask. So you rather do something which is more sustainable, a lifestyle change, like baby steps to get there, and then it will be so much easier because you'll be learning so much about yourself, and it will be something which you're enjoying rather than making food your enemy and moving an entire food group from your life. I mean, how long can someone be on keto? Just think about it.
That's too much, yes. And I think, as we said earlier, food is a big part of our life, of our culture,
Exactly.
of everything, our traditions as well. And it's almost impossible, I think, to completely stop doing something. You can of course put effort, as you both said earlier, but I don't think you can suddenly stop doing this because it's part of your culture, and that's too much to ask for. But maybe twist around your culture and traditions in order to feel better. Like that would be the best way and the most sustainable way, because as you said, we can't be on a diet for all our life.
Like you said, eating food which is in our culture. Like, okay, obviously, because I'm like we another issue is that we live in such a globalized world. Like the world is actually become smaller because we know so much about everything. Like living with Lena, I know so much about all the
yes, and I learned so much about your culture too. Yes.
That's crazy, and isn't it a great thing? You have a huge variety of things to cook at home or try, and then enjoy it and just be it's because, like, for example, the Mediterranean food is supposed to be one of the most healthiest and nutritious meals, and if I know so much about it, I can just use Sri Lankan ingredients and make those same foods.
That's true.
So advantage of like best of both worlds basically. And then and then things like how I'm half Pakistani as well, so there's so much good food.
Yes.
Amazing. Like I just can't even stop talking about food. But I can have to be careful of how much I eat and how I make it. That's all I have to think about. But there's so much available to us. It's just we give into all diets and think that this is gonna work, that's gonna work. But is it really gonna work? Is it what we all want at the end of the day? Are we happy with it? And will it last long? Is it actually feasible and sustainable?
It's not sustainable, yeah. Listen, people need to stop feeling like they have to stop enjoying things in order to be fit or be healthy or whatever. It's just a matter of learning to balance things out. What we're saying again about proportions. And the other, like, if you have a cheat day or you don't reach a goal or multiple cheat days, you have to
cheat life.
It's about not making that your whole life. Not basing your whole self-worth on this number and being like, okay, I didn't achieve it, but I tried and I can try again, and keep going.
Yeah.
I think it's
And I think these are very arbitrary units, like a 10,000 step goal. Like not everyone can achieve 10,000 steps a day. It's actually not that easy. And same with the calorie intake. There's so many factors take into play when you have a specific. Yes, you can be on a calorie deficit, but doesn't mean you sit down and count every calorie, all the meals. But yes, if you're on a fat loss diet and you're trying to compete for something, yes, definitely count your calories of how much you intake, but make it your lifestyle for the rest of your life, and constantly thinking about how much I'm eating can be extremely toxic for you. And it's the same with when you talk about fitness as well. You can't be and look like someone. Everyone has different bodies. We have different food intake. Our bodies all function in different way. We have different health conditions. So it's not easy, and because I just feel like at the end of the day, if you're happy with yourself, that's really what matters, and how you feel. Your health is key.
Yes, because your mental health has an impact on your physical health, obviously. Yes, on your everyday life. So I'm happy that pages like yours exist, to make us learn and just give us a very transparent message about mental health and nutrition, and not trying to teach us in a way that, oh, this is wrong, this is right, because obviously at the end of the day there's no wrong or right, because we're different, as you said. But I'm really happy, so thank you for sharing with us your thoughts and being very transparent about everything, because that's, as we said, everyone has a different life on social media, so that's quite rare.
So that's so true.
If anyone who is watching has a question or wants to add anything, you can just write in the chat. If not, this was a really nice live, and I'm really, really happy that I talked with you. And I wanted to say again, thank you so, so much for interest in roots.
Before we end, I just want to like give like a fun message as part of our page. I just wanted to say that our page is not, we're trying our best right now. Something we're doing, something because we really enjoy and want to share, help people. We obviously have other jobs and other commitments, but as we grow, all we want to do is it's not about our lifestyle, our goals, this thing, but all about giving information. Information should have been given to us earlier in life, or things which people coming up and people should be aware of, which is good for them. And anything research based, even we are learning. We learn
Yes, of course. Yes.
We are still learning, and we hope to do our masters so we could do something better for everyone, like our culture, our people, and be able to give something back and help the people around us and stop so much negativity. And there's so much like hate, not hatred, but like so much like people like I don't know, just so much, just like very like people are like sad about their mental health, people sad about their weight. Not be, you know, like it's just like, you know, there's so much you can do. It's just a matter of knowing what's best for you, and that's what our page is like aimed at. You know, be there and help you in the best way possible. And it's a journey, but enjoy the journey. You know? Don't.
Yes, of course. You're not in a rush.
Yeah, don't. That's I mean, I'm still getting married.
And prioritize loving.
Yeah.
No rush for getting married either. One timeline for everything. There's no one way of living. Just be happy. Oh,
that's true. Thank you guys for your positivity. I really like your page, so I'm really, really grateful that I had a live with you.
So much.
Thank you so much.
This was really nice.
Yes, it was really nice. I will share the live for everyone who wants to rewatch it, and if you want to, you know, share it on your story, of course. And it will also be converted as a podcast, so I will definitely send you the link when it's on Spotify. And thank you for everyone who was watching. I'm really happy you enjoyed the live.
So much. Bye.
Thank you. Take care of yourself. Goodbye.